Hi, this is Coach Don Nealon, and you're watching the Ryan and Rush Show. Please subscribe.
And we welcome you into another edition of the Ryan and Rush Show, your source for West Virginia sports. We have a special episode for you today. For our YouTube audience, you can see who's on the other end. The athletic director for West Virginia University, Wren Baker. Wren, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate having you.
Well, happy to do it, and I think I committed to do this to Ryan several weeks ago, and it got lost in my email box. So I'm glad we're finally making it happen.
Hey, no doubt, Red. And I know we spoke months ago, but you kind of had a busy summer, and I think you've been on the job for 9 months now. Have you been able to catch your breath just a little bit? Have you got a little bit of sleep recently as we head into football season?
I have. Those first 6 months or so, my family wasn't here, and so I burned the candle at both ends during that time. And part of that was by intention, because I wanted to have a little bit of time to spend with them as they acclimated to a new place. We got two younger daughters, and but no, I'm in the I've settled into a routine and have gotten to figure out the traffic patterns. I know when not to try to head home from here,
Yeah.
and when to make that drive and all that stuff. So feeling really good about it. Found a little bit of time to get away late in the summer with the family for a few days to Florida, and we're school has started for me and for them, and everybody's doing great.
That's fantastic. And when you got the job, the first thing that popped my eye was your experience as director of basketball operations assistant during the Coach Sutton days at Oklahoma State. So I was like, oh yeah, we're getting a basketball guy. I'm all in on this. And just talk about, I mean, you're a high school principal in rural Oklahoma, the first ever athletic director and basketball coach at Rogers State. And then, of course, North Texas, the Mean Green, that program, that athletic department's only going in the right direction. We saw them on the big stage at the NCAA tournament pull off an upset. Grant McCaslin got the Texas Tech job because of his success there. Just talk about how your diverse resume, your stops, kind of helps you at a special place like West Virginia, and why it helps you succeed for years to come here in Morgantown.
Yeah, athletics is a different profession because there is no charted career path where you can ensure you're going to get certain opportunities. And I sit with a lot of young people over the course of the year who have an interest in athletic administration and always want to know what my recommendations are for career pathing. And my career path is very unique, and most people's are. It's not like an I have one of my college roommates was an accountant, and when he started with the firm, he knew exactly what he needed to do to make director and then partner and then managing partner. Like it's laid out all the way to mandatory retirement age in his company. Like it's all laid out there in front of you. And so athletics is different. Everybody's path is different. And, I think my path was a really good one because I did work at pretty much every level. And when you're at a smaller institution with smaller resources, you get a chance to see how all the pieces fit together. Because I tell people all the time, like I know a little bit about game operations because when I was in Division II, I was game operations. Like I met the referees and walked them to their locker room. I made sure that there were chairs out for the benches. I pulled the chairs up after the game so that the next day the teams could practice. And so if you only spend your career in a high major with a lot of resources and you're only doing one thing, so like a lot of athletic directors have only been fundraisers at high major conferences, you really don't know anything about what the academic support people do and how hard their job is. And you don't really know about strength and conditioning. But when you're in Division II, like you don't even have all those people. And if you do have those people, there's like one strength coach for all the teams. And so you're in there helping that strength coach and engaged in that. And that gives you a better 360 view when you get into a role like this. And so I think it prepared me in that way. That stop in the public schools as a principal was back in my hometown, and I was 26. And so Now I am not the youngest guy in most rooms, but for a long time I was the youngest guy in the room. And I always tell people there was never anything more intimidating than going back to your hometown and being in charge of evaluating your old teachers when you're 26 years old and they know you really haven't spent much time teaching in the classroom. And so that experience helped me a lot just grow as a person and learn how to manage and lead people when they might not be necessarily just naturally inclined to follow you or see you as a leader. And so all of those experiences really helped make me really well-rounded. I think the last thing I would just say, and Ryan, I know you spent some time working in the basketball program here, but when you are an entry-level position in a place like that, you see the way some people treat a head coach versus they treat a GA.
Yeah.
And that never leaves you. And so I think that experience has helped me a lot too, to try to treat everybody with the same kind of appreciation and respect. And because I remember what that felt like to, as a GA going there. So I think the totality of those experiences were really helpful to me.
Wren, in your 9 months here, West Virginia has had some success. Both the basketball teams made the tournament. The West Virginia baseball team had an unbelievable year and won a share of the Big 12 championship. But it's no secret that there have been some difficult parts too, right? Larry Harrison, Coach Huggins' longtime assistant, was fired. The women's coach kind of leaves in the middle of the night. Obviously, both Hugs incidents going on. There's some issues kind of going in for West Virginia academics right now with the language departments, among a couple other things. And then, there's a lot of question marks around the football team. Why are West Virginia's best days ahead of them? And how can we return to the glory days here at West Virginia?
Yeah. I think it's easy sometimes to get sucked into a vacuum of thinking that the only place where something bad is happening is here. Mm-hmm. So I follow a lot of college athletic programs and a lot of universities, and there's a lot of them that go through a lot of difficult times. Northwestern is one of the best academic institutions in the country. They're in the Big Ten. They're going through a very, very difficult time right now, and so we're not the only one to go through some difficult times. Let me just talk a little bit about the university side because I'm much less educated there, but for years, there's been lots of conversation about there's an enrollment cliff coming for institutions. Mm-hmm. And it's hitting people at different times in different places. I think the fact that WVU is such an experiential university, you really don't pick WVU because it's necessarily easy to get to for some people, or if you want to go online, there are other places online that are probably cheaper and easier. You come here because you want to experience Morgantown, you want that college life. So I think COVID probably hit us a little harder, and that enrollment cliff is also hitting the Northeast harder. Down in Texas and Florida, they're doing a little better in that regard. So I think what we're going through institutionally, there's going to be a lot of people that are going through something similar in the coming years, and so that's something that it's difficult. I know it's hard on our faculty, on our students, on alumni and fans, but you can't always control when tough times come. What you can control is how you react to them. On the athletic side, we've had some difficulties, but I'm more convinced than ever at how bright our future is. We're in a great league, and a league that is well positioned. That's probably the first time in our history that we've been in a league that's the aggressor in conference realignment, that is positioned very, very well. So that's a very positive thing. We have one of the more passionate fan bases in college athletics. You mentioned, that we are coming off of a difficult season in football, but our ticket sales were up. And that just shows like that fan base and that affinity. It's there, and we're going to have good times ahead. I think the other thing that you have to remember, we were in the Big East, which was a good conference, but it was not one of the more affluent, what would be considered a Power 5 conference, even in those days. Our TV payouts were a lot less than the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10. And so we're really just a little over a decade of having those monies, and we've been playing catch up a lot on the facilities front. And so when you move from a league where week in and week out, your competition's tougher. You're not just having to play somebody really good 3 or 4 times a year, playing somebody really good 10 times a year. Like, it's different answering that bell over and over and over again, and it starts to eat into the depth of your team, and it takes you a little bit to adjust to that. But I think we're there. Like, we've made facility improvements. Our NIL program is really strong. We're seeing lots and lots of growth in those opportunities for student athletes. That fan affinity is really strong. The conference is really strong. And so that's why I believe our best days are ahead. And I'm really excited about the future. It's why I was attracted to the job. And there's been nothing that I've seen or experienced here in my first 9 months that's done anything but reaffirm and strengthen that belief.
Yeah, and I'll transition right into something that you touched on, Wren, talking about tickets, how ticket sales are up despite a tough year here and there. Mountaineer fans are always going to show up. That's why the Mountaineers are the pro team in the state. There was a recent study that came out where West Virginia football tickets are on the more expensive side in the country. I think there's no secret about it. West Virginia financially as a state struggles. And a lot of people work in multiple jobs year round so that they can make those 6 Saturdays in the fall basketball games. Are there any plans in place to kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here, maybe make the fan experience more affordable so that we could get more fans at the games? I know that's kind of a tough question because it goes hand in hand. You got to make money, but then also there's nothing better than a full stadium at Mountaineer Field.
Yeah, no, I agree. So if you were to ask me, hey, what is our existential crisis? It really is that we've got to find a way to create more revenue. And I've said that publicly many times. I know it's not always popular. People see the overall budget and they're like, that should be enough. But the reality is, it doesn't matter what your budget is. It matters what your budget is in direct correlation to your competitor's budget. And so athletics is a lot like politics. He with the biggest war chest wins most of the battles. And so we don't need to have the largest budget in the new Big 12, but we do need to have a plan to get our budget to the middle, and we're nowhere near the middle right now. And so that's just a reality. I know that for some people that won't be popular to hear that, but my job is to give all of our stakeholders a true picture of where we're at, and that's where we're at. But we have a mission in this state, and we represent this institution, and this institution means a lot in the state, and it's something that people care very deeply about, and that we are the state's pro team, and I understand that. And so I think that affordability is an important thing for us to look at and find ways for the entry point for fans to. Now listen, if somebody wants to sit on the 50-yard line for bargain basement prices, that's not going to happen. Nor is it happening anywhere.
And that's fair.
Yeah. But but I do think that entry point for fans, and listen, I come from a family of paper makers, and I was raised by a single mother. She worked 4 jobs. We could not have afforded to go to anybody's game. Mm-hmm. And so I very much understand and feel that. I think it's important. Now, that article that come out, we dug a little deeper into that. There was the formula they used to arrive at that was a very flawed formula. And I think a lot of exceptions in the kind of how they calculated that. But we do need to find a way to monetize the parts of our game day experience, the tickets, to create more premium opportunities, more white glove opportunities, and we got to find a way to make money there. And then on the other side, we got to find a way where the blue collar fan who just wants to see the Mountaineers play, wants to bring their family of 4, and doesn't want to have to go without groceries at home to do it. We got to find a way to make that possible and realistic, because we need the next crop of fans. And generally, somebody doesn't start with buying season tickets at the 50. Most of the time, they start somewhere else, and as their career grows and their income grows and their affinity grows, then their commitment to the program will grow. And so it's really important from a pipeline perspective that you have that entry point that's affordable for most fans. And so that's something that I'm cognizant of. And North Texas, I actually said this yesterday and we were in a meeting. I said, North Texas, I think over my 6 years there, we raised ticket prices 3 times in the stadium, but every time we raised it, our lowest ticket price, we lowered it. And we wanted to make sure that. Yes. Are we charging more for club seats? Yes. Are we charging more on the 50? Yes. But if you just want a season ticket in the venue, it's getting cheaper for you. And I think that's an important aspect that we always have to consider.
That's really good to hear, Wren. And I know that's been a concern for some fans, and it's been going around. And I'm not surprised that, a study that's trying to be a little more clickbaity, has a little couple flaws in the algorithm. But definitely the plan you explained there, I think that's going to reassure a lot of Mountaineer fans and really look forward to seeing what you all have in mind and how that comes to play. Moving on to the actual football team itself. Last week, obviously, West Virginia lost 38-15 in Happy Valley. And there were a lot of positives to that game. And there was actually a lot of things to take away from it. Definitely the score wasn't an indication of the game itself. However, there is room for improvement. What would you like to see more from this Mountaineers team as the season goes on? And what would you like to see more out of the head coach, Neil Brown, as well?
Yeah, I think first I would just say, as I onboarded here, spending time in and around football and the coaching staff was a big part of the job. And so I sat individually for fairly lengthy meetings with every single full-time person over there, and spent some time with some of the student athletes and learned everything I could about the program. And I think there's a lot of things that we do exceptionally well there. And a lot of coaches, the only thing they care about is coaching football. And so as an AD, one of your big struggles is to get them to care about everything else and make sure that they understand, no, developing people really matters and academic success really matters, and all those things. Coach Brown very, very much is dialed in on the total growth and experience of student athletes. Like there's not anything that goes on in that building that he doesn't know, he's not plugged in on and isn't aware of. And so from that perspective, I think we do a lot of things right. I think we have to be careful. You see sometimes a program that flips and turns in a year or two. So Sonny Dykes goes into TCU, wins a whole bunch of one-score games. Everything kind of bounces his way, and then people think that's the expectation. But it's just like I remember when I was coming up as a young administrator, sometimes I would see people get a job that I thought I should have gotten, or I thought I was better than them at the job, and I didn't get that opportunity. Everybody is running a different race. Everybody has different obstacles in their path. Everybody, you just can't play whataboutisms when it comes to that. And so I don't pay much attention to that. What I pay attention to is how are we recruiting? How are we retaining? How are we growing and developing? And so that would be where I want to see growth and improvement. Yes, I want to see growth and improvement in the win total, and coach knows, and I know, and everybody knows that's a metric that's really important when you talk about athletics. It's probably the most difficult part of the job. Ryan's been around it. When you work 300 and it's not 365, but it's probably 330 days a year in some form or fashion, and people care and judge you by what's on that scoreboard. 10 football is 12 days a year, so and your total worth is evaluated by that. But that is a metric that matters, and we understand that. We've got to win more games, and this is a program that's proud, and we expect to win games. But I think for me, it's really making sure that we're doing as good of a job as we can at all aspects of the program. And I'm excited about the upcoming year. I saw. Yes, there were some things that we've got to clean up and get better, but there were a lot of positives there at State College to take away from it. I didn't think we looked outmatched or outclassed, especially up front on both sides of the ball. We kind of held our own, and so there was some really good things to take away, and we've got a great opportunity ahead of us here with these home games, and we really need to do well in them.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, Wren. In athletics, especially coaching, what you're not judged on if you did your job. Everybody does their job, but it's if you win or lose the game. So that's why there's so much pressure. And honestly, that's kind of why I got out of it. It's the stability of athletics is crazy. You never know. You're bouncing job to job, depending if you're a coach, 18 to 22-year-olds and their families. But I got to get a basketball question, and I know it's football season, but let's transition over to basketball. Well known, Josh and I are good friends. Josh gave me probably one of the best words of advice when I was a freshman as a manager there. And when I was asking him, how do I work myself up in this business? And he said, your next opportunity will present itself by doing the best possible job in your current job, because too many people in this business are worried about their next step and their next step. And he wasn't just one of those guys that just said it and did something different. I think he's proven it with his track record. GA at Kansas State, then video coordinator, then director of operations and assistant coach, and now head basketball coach. Just talk about how Josh, during the process, I mean, it's been a tough offseason for the basketball program. There's no secret about that. Talk about Josh's steadiness throughout this process, the transfer portal, roster, staff management, and then just your expectations of Josh and that staff so they have a chance to, get the interim tag off at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I had got to spend a little time prior to all the process of everything that happened with Coach Eilert, but not a ton. My focus coming in initially was a lot on football, and then I had women's basketball to deal with, and and then we had some things to handle in the men's basketball program before there was a change in leadership, and so there was. I had not got to spend a lot of one-on-one time with him. So I spent a lot with him that week that we took after Coach Huggins' resignation to just figure out how we were going to move forward. And there were lots of people saying lots of things during that time. One of the first things I tell young people, whether they want to coach or be an AD, you cannot spend any time worrying about what people say, think, or do about you. Like, you can't do this job looking over your shoulder wondering if you have people's approval. You cannot do it. You will drive yourself crazy and you can't be effective. And so there were probably a lot of people that were creating a lot of noise. People would be surprised how very little I heard of that, because I just don't like. One of the first things I do in a controversial time is I delete all social media apps off my phone so that I'm not even tempted to go in there and look and check and see, because that stuff, I always say, both praise and criticism are poison pills if you digest them. And so I just try not to digest them and clear my head and think about how to move forward. And so with Coach Eilert, that really, I give everybody on the staff who wanted an opportunity to sit and talk to me about the program in the future that opportunity. And Coach Eilert really intrigued me as we had that conversation. We met multiple times. He also had meetings with President Gee and Rob Alsop, and Steve Urias, our deputy AD and sport program administrator, was a part of those conversations. And we spent a lot of time digging deeply. He's never really said much to me about the process, but a mutual friend of ours told me recently, he said, I really put him through the ringer. So I need to, I need to ask him about that. But I did, when you have somebody who hasn't been a head coach and you understand the pressure of the situation you're about to put them under, like, I intentionally pushed him a little further than what you might do in a different process, because I wanted to see how he reacted to being asked really tough questions and really tough scenarios and how he would handle them. And he handled that process very well. I think he's handled his time so far in the chair very well. I can't think of anything that I would have had him do different or better. I think for me, I frame this up the same way every time. I think it's important to make sure that people understand My intention is to do a coaching search at the end of the year. But he very much is a part of that conversation. I hope he goes and does a great job and is part of that process. And, we will evaluate throughout the year as we're going on. I mean, he's got a great opportunity, and I think it's an opportunity. He and I talked about this. No matter how this turns out, it's a great opportunity for him and a great learning experience. And but he's a terrific human being. The more you learn about his story and his background and how he got to where he is, it's an incredible story. And he's somebody that you enjoy working with and that you have confidence in leading with integrity.
Yeah, Josh is a great guy, and hey, he wins. Hopefully, he makes your job a lot easier, but gets a little stress off of you. Winning makes things a lot better for a lot of people. But Wren, we were talking earlier in the conversation. You brought up the Big 12 and definitely how progressive and Brent Yormark has been in the Big 12. It's definitely the most fun league right now, especially adding 4 more teams next year. I guess maybe we'll be the Big 16. Who knows what we'll be called? But there's also kind of been some rumors swirling around, especially where West Virginia is. If there's concerns that the ACC may make it, maybe they don't. Maybe they pull a Pac-12, and maybe they try to reach out and grab a West Virginia. The SEC even said that West Virginia is on a short list. Are you happy? Are we happy where we are in the Big 12? Because I feel like this is a perfect fit, especially we start with the Eastern teams we're starting to add with Cincinnati and Central Florida. Is how confident, how comfortable are we in this Big 12?
Yeah, first of all, I would say we're very proud members of the Big 12. And the geography has not been ideal these last few years, but if you go to the Big 12 campuses, we're a Big 12 team. I mean, our fan base, Morgantown, it's a lot like Manhattan and Stillwater and those different outposts. Like, we fit in the Big 12. Ames, I mean, those are college towns with passionate fan bases, blue collar. A lot of them were land grant institutions. All of those things that make WVU special. Though I wish that some of them were a little closer to us, that our fans could bus to. Yeah, sure, but they're not. And you know what? You look at all these conferences now outside the SEC; they're all geographically spread. So, so I'm very pleased and happy with the Big 12. I'm not surprised that we would surface on different lists, because I have seen, as the Big 12 went through evaluating different programs for expansion, they always do a ranking of the total viewership and valuation and brand reach and all of those things. And we're always in the top 4 or 5 every time I see that list. And so even though we're not in a very populated state, we command absolute and total market share in this state, and really a strong market share in the region. And that shows up when they run all of those numbers. And so I think from that perspective, we're positioned very well. But there's been no conversations on our end with anybody. We're focused on making the Big 12 the best it can be, because we think that the Big 12 is positioned very well and is a great place for us to be.
Absolutely.
I would say, since getting out of coaching, that's probably the main thing I miss, is going to the different college towns, Ames, Manhattan, Lubbock. I love all the Stillwater. I know you spent many times there. So yeah, I love the Big 12 and the whole landscape. And I'm glad that we have a little bit more geographic friends with Cincinnati in the league now. So Wren, real quick. So you're 9 months in. I'm sure some days it feels like you've been here 9 years, because it's been a long 9 months. So you're going to be heading into your second year. And I feel like that's sometimes in the coaching world, that's when you really start putting your blueprint on your program. From an athletic director side, are there some improvements or some things you've learned in the first 9 months that you think will really help you in your second and years to come?
Yeah, you're correct. In that second year is really, so right now we're immersed in kind of a strategic planning process. And on the heels of completing that process, we'll do a facility assessment, because that'll be part of our strategic vision. And the way that I like to do things, it's not just these high level theoretical aspirational statements that you put out. I have spreadsheets on the back end of that's tied. So if we say, hey, we want to engage our letter winners, well, there's a list of 4 or 5 things a year over 5 years. So 20, 25 things. And we have somebody who's responsible for ensuring that gets done. And we come together a couple times a year, and I go through in green, yellow, and red. Green is it's done. Yellow, it's in process. Red, it hasn't started yet. And so that's how you make those big improvements, is through doing all of those little incremental things. And I'm really excited to get to that part of it. And really that starts with interviewing student athletes, coaches, staff, all of those different people who touch the program, so you can get their perspective. So I am excited for year 2. In terms of takeaways, I think probably the biggest 2 takeaways, and they're really tied together, is just how much the program means to the people here. And I was told that in the interview, but until you get here, you can't really appreciate. I mean, I spent a lot of time driving this summer to different places around West Virginia. And I know that this position in this state is one that a lot of people will know the name and that kind of stuff. But I couldn't tell you the number of times where I'm in a T-shirt with a ball cap on, putting gas in a car, driving across the state, and somebody says, "Hey, Wren, welcome to West Virginia," and it's 3 hours from here, right? Like, so, what it means to the people and how much they're connected to it is something that you have to get here and really experience. And I tell people all the time when we're recruiting them here, student athletes and coaches, this job requires a lot of time, effort, and energy. It's a lifestyle. College athletics is a lot. If you're going to do it, you want people to care. People in West Virginia very much care, and it is both a privilege, but it's also a responsibility. And like, if you're not willing to understand and feel that pressure that comes with representing the state, don't come here, because this is not the place for you. There are lots of places. I mean, I came from North Texas. We had 45,000 students, a great fan base. But like in DFW, it's Cowboys, it's Mavericks, it's Rangers, it's Stars, even TCU and SMU. They've got a small, loyal following, but by and large, you live in anonymity. You don't carry that weight and pressure. And so, like here, I think that's one of probably the key takeaways that I did not fully comprehend and understand until I got here.
Wren, we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming on. Just one last question for you, especially now that we're in the NIL transfer portal era, and we have the Country Roads Trust, the MAC. What are some other initiatives that students, that fans, that those who want to get involved and really help West Virginia, you talked about it's about the almighty dollar at the end of the day. How can us fans get involved with Country Roads Trust or any other initiatives?
Yeah, I think you don't have to do everything if you just do something. Mm-hmm. So if you live close enough and your schedule is such that you can have season tickets, just buy a season ticket. That makes a massive impact. If the stadium is full every Saturday, that in and of itself will do a lot of good. If you can support Country Roads Trust, that provides opportunities for our student athletes. And those opportunities, NIL opportunities, comes up in every single recruiting conversation that you're ever going to have. And it's probably going to be the first thing you talk about and the last thing you talk about. And so that's a very, very important aspect of what we do. But even there are little things. There's the gear that our student athletes put out that has their name, image, and likeness on it through different companies and opportunities. All of those things. The MAC support. I mean, we live and die with those MAC contributions. They're very, very critical and very important. So what I always challenge people to do is, we know that sometimes resources are limited and you can't do everything. Just do something. Don't let the fact that you can't do everything keep you from doing something. Mm-hmm. And together we're going to build a great program. We're going to build on our tradition and our history, and we're going to have many great days ahead. We're going to cut nets and tear down goalposts and do all kinds of fun things together. And you're going to want to be a part of that.
I'm ready to run through a wall right now. You got me fired up, Wren. That's great.
Hey, let's run through Duquesne and then Pitt, and we'll and hopefully we keep running after that.
Sounds like a plan.
I like the sound of that.
Wren, thank you again so much for coming on. We know we'll let you get back to the 2 million things you have on your plate. Thanks again. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. And hey, we'll see you out in the blue lot.
Appreciate it. See you guys.
Have a
See you,
great
Wren.
day.
Go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers.